My name is Nestor. I'm 24 years old, and I work as an IT specialist with a decent salary that's helped me build up substantial savings over the years. When my parents suddenly suggested we go to the bank to handle some simple paperwork, something felt off. Dad kept pushing papers toward me, insisting I sign quickly. Mom squeezed my elbow so hard it hurt. That's when I knew I needed help, and slipped a desperate note to a teller. If you've ever felt used by the people who should love you most, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this turns out. Life had been pretty good for me lately. After graduating with my computer science degree 3 years ago, I landed a solid position at a growing software company in Boston. I started as a junior developer, but quickly moved up to become a specialist in cybersecurity implementations, which came with a significant pay bump. The job wasn't always exciting, but it was stable, challenging enough to keep me interested, and most importantly, it paid well. Since I was 18, I'd been meticulously saving money. Growing up, I watched my parents lurch from one financial disaster to another, and I swore I'd never live that way. Every paycheck, at least 30%, went straight into savings or investments. By 24, I had accumulated just over $110,000, a fact I was proud of, but kept mostly to myself. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. My father, William, was what you might politely call a gambling enthusiast, though addict would be more accurate. He'd bounce between jobs, never holding one for more than a few months before either quitting or getting fired for showing up late or not at all. He was charming when he wanted to be, especially when he needed something, but his temper could flare in an instant if he felt challenged. My mother, Susan, came from a wealthy family who cut her off when she married my father against their wishes. She'd never held a full-time job, instead picking up occasional part-time work when things got especially tight. Mostly she enabled my father's behavior, making excuses for him and cleaning up his messes. She wasn't a bad person, just deeply codependent and afraid of being alone. I moved out the moment I turned 18, taking nothing but my clothes and my laptop. I'd saved up enough from my after-school job at a local electronics store to put down a deposit on a tiny studio apartment I shared with a friend. College was funded through a combination of scholarships, student loans, and working nearly full-time hours alongside my studies. It wasn't easy, but independence felt worth every sacrifice. Contact with my parents dwindled over the years. We'd talk maybe once every couple of months, usually initiated by my mother checking in. Visits were even rarer, perhaps once or twice a year on major holidays, and only if I went to them. They never asked how I was doing financially, and I never volunteered the information. The less they knew about my life, the less complicated things stayed. So when I received a call from my father on a random Tuesday afternoon, I was immediately suspicious. My phone displayed his name, and I almost let it go to voicemail before curiosity got the better of me. Nestor, son. How are you doing? His voice had that upbeat, slightly too enthusiastic tone that I recognized from childhood, the one he used when he wanted something. I'm fine, Dad. What's up? I kept my response neutral, guarded. Can't a father just call to check on his only son? It's been, 3 months since we talked? 4, actually. Christmas. Right. Well, listen, your mother and I were thinking it would be nice to see you. Maybe grab lunch tomorrow. There's this new place downtown I've been meaning to try. This was unusual. My father rarely suggested meeting up unless he needed money, and he never offered to pay for meals. What's the occasion? I asked. No occasion. Just want to catch up. And well, we could use a little help with some bank paperwork afterward. Nothing major, just need your signature on a couple of forms. Our financial advisor suggested we update some things. There it was. The real reason. What kind of forms? Oh, just routine stuff. Won't take more than 15 minutes of your time. So lunch tomorrow. Say noon at the Capitol Grill. The Capitol Grill was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Now I was really suspicious. Dad, what's really going on? Nothing, I swear. Things are looking up for us. I've got some business opportunities in the works. Just want to spend time with my son and take care of a little paperwork. Is that so strange? Against my better judgment, I agreed. Something about his tone made me uneasy, but family ties are hard to sever completely. Besides, I told myself what harm could come from lunch and routine paperwork. I'd be careful, watch for red flags, and maintain control of the situation. Looking back, I should have trusted my instincts. The warning signs were already flashing, but I ignored them partly out of curiosity and partly out of that lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents had changed. It's amazing how powerful that hope can be, even when all evidence points to the contrary. Fine, noon tomorrow at the Capitol Grill, but I need to be back at work by 2. Perfect. We'll see you then. Love you, son. The call ended, and I sat staring at my phone, a knot forming in my stomach. Whatever this was about, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be as simple as my father claimed. Still, I decided to go, if only to find out what they were really after. I just never imagined how far they would go or how quickly things would spiral out of control. The Capitol Grill stood out like a palace among the surrounding buildings, with its polished brass fixtures and pristine windows. I arrived exactly at noon, dressed in my work clothes, dark jeans, and a button-down shirt. As I approached the entrance, I spotted my parents already seated at a table near the window. My father was wearing a suit I'd never seen before, and my mother had on a dress that looked new as well. For two people who frequently complained about not making rent, they certainly looked the part of affluent diners. Nestor. My father stood up, arms wide, as if we were the closest of friends. Right on time. Come sit down. I gave him a brief hug and kissed my mother on the cheek before taking the seat across from them. A waiter appeared almost immediately. Sir, would you care for something to drink? Your parents have already ordered a bottle of Dom Perignon to celebrate. I raised an eyebrow. Dom Perignon. That bottle alone would cost more than my father's usual monthly grocery budget. Just water for me, thanks. I have to get back to work after this. My father waved dismissively. Oh, one glass won't hurt. This is a special occasion. What exactly are we celebrating, Dad? I asked once the waiter had left. Life, family, new beginnings. He was practically bouncing in his seat. I've got some excellent business prospects lined up. Things are finally turning around for us. My mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She kept glancing at her watch, then at the door, as if expecting someone else to arrive. That's great, I said cautiously. What kind of business? Import-export. Got some connections in Europe now. Big potential. But that's not important right now. Tell us about you. How's that computer job going? For the next 30 minutes, we engaged in superficial conversation while eating overpriced appetizers. My father ordered the most expensive items on the menu without even glancing at the prices. My mother barely touched her food, constantly checking the time and fidgeting with her napkin. Finally, I decided to cut to the chase. So, about this paperwork you mentioned, what exactly needs my signature? They exchanged a quick glance. Oh, that, my father said dismissively. Just some family financial planning. The bank requires all family members to sign off. It's routine, nothing to worry about. What kind of financial planning? And why would the bank need my signature? We don't have any joint accounts. It's complicated, my mother interjected. The financial advisor can explain it better than we can. He's meeting us at the bank at 2 o'clock. The time I'd told them I needed to be back at work. This wasn't coincidental. I told you I have to get back to work by 2. This won't take long, my father assured me. 15 minutes tops. Your boss won't even notice you're late. I have meetings scheduled. Reschedule them. This is important, Nestor. Family comes first. The waiter brought our main courses temporarily, halting the conversation. My father excused himself to use the restroom, leaving me alone with my mother. Mom, what's really going on? I asked quietly. She avoided my eyes. It's like your father said. Just some paperwork. You seem nervous. I'm not nervous. Just a little tired, that's all. My father was taking an unusually long time in the restroom. Excusing myself, I walked toward the back of the restaurant. As I approached the hallway leading to the restrooms, I heard my father's voice coming from around the corner. He was on the phone, speaking in hushed but excited tones. Yes, we're at lunch now. Yes, he's here. No, he doesn't suspect anything. We'll be at the bank at 2 o'clock sharp. Yes, he'll sign. The money should transfer today. Don't worry, it's all going according to plan. My heart started racing. Whatever this paperwork was, it clearly involved my money, and my father had already promised it to someone else. I slipped back to the table before he could spot me, my mind racing. I needed to call my bank, but when I excused myself and tried to call from outside the restaurant, no one picked up. It was lunch hour, and the customer service line kept me on hold. I sent an email to my financial advisor, but knew she probably wouldn't see it until later. When my father returned, I studied him carefully. The flush of excitement on his face, the slight tremor in his hands as he picked up his fork. He was riding the high of a scheme he thought was about to pay off. I'd seen this expression countless times in my childhood, usually right before our electricity got shut off, or we had to move in the middle of the night. So I said casually, "Which bank are we going to?" "First National on State Street," he replied. "They've been very helpful with our financial planning." First National wasn't my bank. That was a small relief, but it didn't explain why they would need my signature for anything. The rest of lunch passed in a blur of forced conversation and increasing tension. My mother barely spoke, picking at her food and downing 2 glasses of wine in quick succession. My father dominated the conversation, talking about his new business connections and plans for the future, none of which sounded remotely plausible. As we finished dessert, which I hadn't wanted but my father insisted on ordering, he checked his watch. Perfect timing. It's 1:45. The bank is just around the corner. I considered making an excuse and leaving, but curiosity and concern won out. I needed to know exactly what they were planning. Besides, without knowing the details, I couldn't be sure how to protect myself. So I nodded, paid the tip when my father conveniently forgot, and followed them out onto the street, my mind racing with possible scenarios and how to counter them. Whatever was waiting at that bank, I decided I would be ready. I just didn't realize how far they were willing to go, or how quickly I would need to act to protect everything I'd worked so hard to build. First National Bank's downtown branch was housed in an imposing granite building with tall columns flanking the entrance. The interior was all polished marble and mahogany, designed to convey stability and trustworthiness. As we entered, a young man in a crisp suit immediately approached us, smiling widely. "Mr. and Mrs. Franklin, right on time. And this must be Nestor." He extended his hand to me. "Dave Harrington. I've been working with your parents on their financial planning. It's great to finally meet you." His handshake was too firm, his smile too practiced. I disliked him immediately. "Let's head over to my desk and get this paperwork taken care of," Dave said, leading us to a desk in a semi-private area. "I've got everything prepared." As we walked, I noticed Dave and my father exchange a look that strengthened my suspicions. They'd clearly discussed more than just routine paperwork. Dave's desk was already covered with multiple documents, all neatly arranged with yellow sticky tabs marking signature lines. My parents positioned themselves on either side of me as I took the seat directly in front of Dave. It felt strategic, almost like they were blocking any potential escape. So Nestor Dave began sliding a thick stack of papers toward me. "Your parents have been exploring some interesting financial opportunities, and they need your signature on a few things to proceed." "What exactly am I signing?" I asked, not touching the papers. "Just standard authorization forms," my father cut in before Dave could respond. "Like I said, routine stuff." "Then you won't mind if I read through everything?" First, I said, pulling the stack closer. My father's smile faltered slightly. "We don't have all day, son. Dave has other appointments, and you need to get back to work. Remember, I'll skim it quickly," I insisted, beginning to flip through the pages. The first document was headed Power of Attorney. The second was titled Authorization for Transfer of Assets. The third began with Account Closure Request. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I continued scanning. These weren't routine financial planning documents. They were forms authorizing my father to access, transfer, and essentially take control of my financial accounts. "These are forms giving you access to my accounts," I said flatly, looking up at my father. His expression hardened. "It's not what you think, Nestor. We're restructuring our family finances. It's temporary." "Temporary. This is a full power of attorney. It would give you complete control over my finances indefinitely." "You don't understand the whole picture," my mother interjected, her voice tight. Your father has an opportunity that could benefit all of us, but it requires some capital up front. And you want my capital. It wasn't a question. My father leaned forward, dropping his voice. I owe some people money, Nestor. Important people. They're not patient, and they're not nice. This is about protecting our family. By taking my money, by investing it, this deal will double our money in 6 months, triple it in a year. Dave cleared his throat. Perhaps I should give you folks a moment to discuss this privately. No, my father snapped. There's nothing to discuss. Nestor just needs to sign the papers. Dave pushed a pen toward me. All the signature lines are marked. Once these are signed, we can process everything immediately. My mother's hand clamped down on my arm, her fingers digging in painfully. Nestor, she whispered, her voice trembling, you have to do this. For the family, your father, we don't have options. I looked from my mother's pleading face to my father's increasingly angry one, then to Dave's impatient expression. The pressure was suffocating. I need to read these documents properly. Before signing anything, I insisted, trying to keep my voice steady. There's no time for that. My father's voice rose, causing several people to look our way. He lowered it quickly. These papers need to be processed today. The money needs to transfer today. Why the rush? Because the opportunity won't wait. Because I've already committed to it. The truth was emerging. He hadn't just found an opportunity. He'd already promised my money to someone, probably to pay gambling debts. How much do you need? I asked. He named a figure that made my blood run cold. $90,000. Nearly everything I had. That's insane. I'm not giving you $90,000. You're not giving me anything, he hissed. You're investing in our family's future, and you owe us, Nestor. Who raised you? Who put clothes on your back and food in your mouth for 18 years? Parents invest in their children, and sometimes children need to return the favor. The emotional manipulation was as familiar as it was infuriating. I'd heard variations of this speech throughout my childhood whenever my father wanted something. I need to use the restroom, I said, abruptly, standing up. Now we're in the middle of something important. My father's face was flushed with anger. It'll just take a minute. I needed space to think, to plan. Fine, make it quick. I walked toward the restrooms at the back of the bank, my mind racing. Once inside, I pulled out my phone and called my friend Emma, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm. No answer. I tried my bank again. Still on hold. I was on my own. Whatever I was going to do, I needed to do it now. Taking a small notepad and pen from my pocket, I quickly scrawled, "Help. My parents are forcing me to sign over my account. Please call security." I folded the note tightly and slipped it into my palm. When I returned to the desk, my father was tapping his fingers impatiently on the surface. Dave looked annoyed, and my mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Finally, my father said, "Now sign the papers so we can all get on with our day." I sat down and picked up the pen Dave had provided. I made a show of looking at the first document, pretending to consider signing it. Then I deliberately fumbled and dropped the pen. "Sorry about that," I mumbled, bending down to retrieve it. As I crouched by the desk, I saw a female teller at the next station over. Her nameplate read Alicia. While my parents and Dave were focused on the papers, I quietly slid my folded note across the floor toward her desk, then straightened up with the pen in hand. "Now, where do I sign first?" I asked, stalling for time. Dave pointed to the first yellow tab. "Right here. Then initial here, here, and here. Then signature again on page 4. From the corner of my eye, I saw Alicia pick up my note, unfold it, and read it. Her eyes widened slightly. Without drawing attention to herself, she stood and walked briskly toward the back of the bank. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to review page 4 again. The language seems a bit complicated." My father's patience was clearly wearing thin. "For God's sake, Nestor, it's standard legal language. Just sign it." "Mr. Franklin," Dave said, his professional demeanor slipping, "we really need to complete this today. Other clients are waiting." My mother squeezed my arm again painfully. "Please, honey," she whispered. "Just do what your father asks. It's important." The minutes stretched painfully, as I continued to stall, asking questions about specific clauses and pretending to carefully read each page. My father's responses became increasingly curt, and Dave kept checking his watch. Just as my father was about to explode with frustration, a tall man in an expensive suit approached our desk. His badge identified him as Marcus Johnson, branch manager. "Mr. Harrington," he said, his voice calm, but authoritative. "Could I see you and these clients in my office for a moment?" Dave looked startled. "We're in the middle of some important paperwork, sir." "Yes, I can see that. Nevertheless, I need to speak with all of you immediately. Please follow me." My father started to protest, but something in Marcus's expression silenced him. We followed the manager to a large office with glass walls at the back of the bank. Once we were all inside, Marcus closed the door and pressed a button that frosted the glass walls, providing privacy. Then he very deliberately locked the door. The tension in the room was palpable. My father was the first to break the silence. "What's the meaning of this? We're in the middle of important family business." Marcus Johnson folded his hands on his desk and looked directly at me. "I believe you have something you want to tell me, sir." The moment of truth had arrived, and with it the realization that I was about to change my family dynamic forever. But, as I looked at my father's angry face and my mother's fearful one, I knew I had no choice. I had to protect myself, even if it meant breaking the unhealthy bonds that had constrained me for too long. The silence in the manager's office stretched for what felt like an eternity. My father glared at me, a warning in his eyes. My mother looked down at her hands, shoulders hunched, as if preparing for a blow. Dave Harrington shifted uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly very interested in straightening his tie. "Yes," I finally said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I do have something to tell you." "Don't you dare," my father hissed, but Marcus held up a hand to silence him. "Please continue," the manager said to me. I took a deep breath. The paperwork I was being asked to sign would give my father power of attorney over my finances and authorize the transfer of nearly all my savings to his accounts. I was not given time to read the documents properly, and I'm being pressured to sign them immediately. Marcus nodded, his expression neutral but attentive. "And is this something you want to do?" "Absolutely not." "This is ridiculous," my father interjected. "We're his parents. We're helping him make a smart investment. This is family business, not bank business." "Actually," Mr. Franklin, Marcus replied, "calmly preventing financial coercion is very much bank business. We take our customers' financial security seriously." "Coercion. That's absurd. Tell him, Susan." My mother flinched at being addressed directly, but managed to murmur, "We just want what's best for the family." "By taking $90,000 from your son without his informed consent?" Marcus asked pointedly. "It's a loan," my father insisted. "An investment opportunity." "That's not what the paperwork indicates," I countered. "There's nothing about loans or repayment terms. These documents would give you complete control over my accounts and assets." Marcus turned to Dave. "Mr. Harrington, did you prepare these documents?" Dave swallowed hard. I was following client instructions." "Did you explain to all parties what these documents entail? Did you verify that everyone involved understood and consented to these actions?" "Well, Mr. Franklin assured me that his son was on board with the plan." "So you took one party's word about another party's consent in a significant financial transaction without speaking to both parties independently?" Dave's face paled. I suppose I did." Marcus's expression hardened slightly. "That's a serious breach of protocol, Mr. Harrington." While this exchange was happening, I was trying to process my own emotions. Relief at being rescued from the immediate situation, mixed with anger at my parents' betrayal and anxiety about what would happen next. I'd spent years trying to maintain some semblance of a relationship with my parents while protecting myself from their destructive patterns. Now that careful balance had been shattered. My father, sensing the situation slipping away from him, changed tactics. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice taking on the smooth, charming tone he used when trying to talk his way out of trouble. "We should have explained things better to Nestor. Let's all calm down and discuss this as a family. No need for bank involvement." "I disagree," Marcus replied. "Based on what I've heard, and the note your son felt compelled to pass to my teller, there are serious concerns here." "Note? What note?" My father's eyes darted to me, betrayal and fury evident in his expression. I met his gaze steadily. I wrote a note asking for help, because you weren't listening when I said no. My mother began to cry quietly, still not looking up. William, maybe we should just go. We can figure something else out. There is nothing else to figure out. My father snapped his charm, vanishing instantly. Do you have any idea what will happen if I don't get that money today? Do you? The desperation in his voice confirmed my worst suspicions. This wasn't about investment opportunities. My father was in serious trouble, likely with the kind of people who didn't resolve debts through legal channels. Mr. Franklin, Marcus said firmly, I need to inform you that I've contacted bank security and they're on their way. I've also placed a call to the police. The police. My father stood up abruptly. This is outrageous. We're leaving. Come on, Susan. I'm afraid I can't allow you to leave just yet. Marcus said, remaining seated but gesturing to the locked door. The authorities will want to speak with everyone involved. You can't keep us here against our will. Actually, given the attempted financial fraud occurring on bank property, we can detain you until the authorities arrive. It's standard procedure. My father turned his fury on me. Is this what you want? To see your own father arrested after everything we've done for you? The guilt trip might have worked once, but not anymore. What I want is for you to stop trying to steal from me and manipulate me. What I want is parents who actually care about my well-being instead of seeing me as an ATM. You ungrateful little. A knock at the door interrupted whatever insult was coming. Marcus unlocked it to reveal a security guard and Alicia the teller who had received my note. The police are here, sir, the guard informed Marcus. Thank you. Please show them in. My father sank back into his chair, the fight suddenly draining out of him. My mother continued to cry silently. Dave Harrington looked like he might be sick. As two uniformed officers entered the office, I felt an unexpected wave of calm. For years, I'd been running from confrontation with my parents, trying to maintain peace while protecting myself. But sometimes I realize the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to say no, to set boundaries, and to hold people accountable for their actions. The officers began taking statements, starting with Marcus and then moving to me. I told them everything: the suspicious lunch, the pressure to sign documents. I hadn't read the threats about important people my father owed money to. As I spoke, I watched my father's face cycle through anger, fear, and finally defeat. Whatever scheme he'd been planning, whatever debt he was trying to pay, it had all fallen apart. And for perhaps the first time in his life, he would have to face the consequences of his actions without someone else bailing him out. It wasn't the outcome I had expected when I agreed to meet my parents for lunch, but as difficult as this moment was, I knew it was necessary. Sometimes the path to healing can only begin when we stop pretending everything is fine and confront the painful truth head-on. The bank's conference room had been transformed into an impromptu interrogation center. The police had separated us for initial statements, then brought us back together to clarify details. Officer Rivera, a stern-faced woman with compassionate eyes, had taken the lead in questioning. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, she said, reviewing her notes. Mr. Franklin Sr., you arranged this meeting to have your son sign documents giving you control over his finances without fully disclosing the nature of these documents to him. Is that correct? My father, looking deflated but still defiant, shook his head. That's not how it was. I was trying to help my son make a good investment. The paperwork was just formality. A formality that would give you access to $90,000, Officer Rivera noted. It's complicated, my father muttered. Then uncomplicate it for me, she replied. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like attempted financial fraud and coercion. Marcus Johnson, who had remained in the room as a witness, interjected. The documents prepared by Mr. Harrington would have transferred control of Mr. Franklin Jr.'s accounts to his father with no provisions for return or repayment. That's not consistent with an investment or loan scenario. Dave Harrington, who had been questioned separately and now sat at the far end of the table, looked miserable. I was told this was a family financial planning situation, he said weakly. Mr. Franklin assured me his son was aware of and agreeable to the arrangement. Did you at any point speak directly with Nestor Franklin about these documents? Before today, Officer Rivera asked. No, Dave admitted. I dealt exclusively with his father. And did you explain to Mr. Franklin Sr. that these documents would grant him irrevocable control over his son's assets? Dave squirmed in his seat. I may not have used those exact words. What words did you use? I believe I said they would facilitate family financial restructuring. Officer Rivera raised an eyebrow. That's remarkably vague for documents with such significant financial implications. The questioning continued, with Officer Rivera skillfully untangling the web of half-truths and manipulations. As the full picture emerged, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Finally, Officer Rivera turned to my father with a direct question. Mr. Franklin, what exactly did you need $90,000 for, and why the urgency to complete this transaction today specifically? My father stared at the table silent. Mr. Franklin, she pressed, refusing to cooperate only makes your situation worse. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice barely audible. I owe money to some people. They want it today. All of it. What people? Business associates. Business associates who can't wait for repayment through normal channels. Who need payment specifically today? Officer Rivera's tone made it clear she wasn't buying it. My father's facade finally cracked. Fine, I owe $90,000 to Anthony Delgado, gambling debt. He gave me until today to pay up, or he's going to. He made threats against me and Susan. The name Anthony Delgado caused Officer Rivera to exchange a significant look with her partner. Clearly, they recognized it. Anthony Delgado, the loan shark, with ties to organized crime in the South End, she asked. My father nodded miserably. And you thought the solution was to steal from your son? Not steal, he protested. Borrow. I was going to pay it back. With what money, William? My mother finally spoke up, her voice thick with tears. We're already 3 months behind on rent. The credit cards are maxed out. You haven't had a job in over a year. My father turned on her. Shut up, Susan. You're not helping. No, William. I'm done covering for you. My mother straightened in her chair, meeting my eyes for the first time since this ordeal began. Nestor, I'm sorry. I knew about this plan. I didn't want to go through with it, but your father said. He said if we didn't get the money today, Anthony would hurt us. I was scared. So you decided to sacrifice me instead. I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. I didn't think of it that way, she whispered. I told myself you'd be fine, that you're young and can earn more money, that we'd pay you back someday. I wanted to believe him when he said it was temporary. Like all the other temporary situations, I asked. Like the time you emptied my college fund to pay off his debts, or when you put utility bills in my name when I was 18, and then didn't pay them, destroying my credit score before I even had a chance to build it. She flinched at each example. I'm sorry. I've been weak. I've been afraid to leave, afraid to stand up to him. Officer Rivera turned to Dave. And what was your role in all this, Mr. Harrington? Why would you prepare documents for such a questionable transaction? Dave's professional demeanor had completely evaporated. Mr. Franklin promised me a commission, $5,000, if I helped process everything quickly and discreetly. A bribe, in other words, Officer Rivera said flatly. I didn't think of it that way at the time. Dave muttered, echoing my mother's words. Marcus Johnson shook his head in disgust. That's a clear violation of bank policy and potentially illegal, Mr. Harrington. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately, and you'll be cooperating fully with any investigation, or we'll add obstruction charges. Officer Rivera stood up. William Franklin, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to commit theft. You have the right to remain silent. As she recited the Miranda rights, I watched my father's face. There was no remorse there, only anger and blame. Directed at me, at my mother, at Dave, at the world, never at himself. This isn't over, Nestor, he said as the officers prepared to lead him away. You've chosen money over your own family. I hope you're proud of yourself. No, Dad, I replied quietly. I chose myself over your addiction and manipulation. There's a difference. As they escorted him out, my mother remained slumped in her chair, looking lost. What happens to me now? She asked Officer Rivera's partner. We'll need your statement, ma'am, he replied. Your level of involvement and cooperation will determine whether charges are filed against you. She nodded numbly. I'll tell you everything. It's time I stopped lying. To you, to Nestor, to myself. Marcus Johnson approached me as the officers continued their work. I'm sorry you had to go through this, Mr. Franklin. If there's anything the bank can do to assist you, please let me know. Thank you for taking my note seriously, I said. Not everyone would have. Unfortunately, financial exploitation by family members is more common than most people realize, he replied, especially targeting young people with savings or elderly individuals with retirement funds. We train our staff to watch for warning signs. I glanced toward Alicia, the teller, who had received my note, who was giving her statement to another officer. Please thank her for me as well. Marcus nodded. She did exactly the right thing. Now I suggest you consider placing additional security measures on your accounts. We can help with that once this situation is resolved. As I waited for my turn to complete the police paperwork, I reflected on how quickly life can change. 4 hours ago, I was heading to what I thought would be an awkward but manageable lunch with my parents. Now my father was under arrest, my mother might face charges, and the dysfunctional family dynamic I'd been managing through distance and limited contact had been shattered completely. It was painful, shocking, and in some ways traumatic. But beneath those feelings was something unexpected relief. The constant anxiety of waiting for the next crisis, the next manipulation, the next demand, it was gone. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free from my father's influence. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I would never again allow anyone to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. Some family bonds aren't worth preserving at any cost, especially when the cost is your own well-being, financial security, and peace of mind. The next few hours unfolded like scenes from a movie I never wanted to star in. The bank's normal operations continued around us, though I noticed Marcus had arranged for customers to be directed to other areas away from the unfolding drama. 2 more police officers arrived, along with a detective who introduced himself as Detective Morales, specializing in financial crimes. Detective Morales was thorough and methodical. He interviewed each of us separately, again diving deeper into the details, asking about past incidents and patterns of behavior. When it was my turn, he was particularly interested in the history. Has your father attempted to access your finances? Before he asked, his pen poised over his notepad. I thought carefully before answering. Not directly like this, but there have been incidents. When I was 18, I discovered he had emptied a small college fund my grandparents had set up for me, about $12,000. He claimed it was an emergency and promised to pay it back. Did he? No. There was also a time when he convinced me to co-sign on a car loan, then stopped making payments 3 months in. I ended up paying it off to protect my credit score. Detective Morales nodded, making notes. And today's attempt involved $90,000. That's a significant escalation. I think his situation with this Delgado person must be desperate. He's never gone this far before. Anthony Delgado isn't someone to be taken lightly, the detective agreed. He's known for lending money to gamblers, then using extreme methods to collect. Your father's lucky we intercepted this situation before he got even deeper with Delgado. Will Delgado come after him now? Or my mother? Detective Morales looked up from his notes. We'll be having a conversation with Mr. Delgado about this matter. His activities have been on our radar for some time. Your father's testimony could be valuable in building a case against him. After completing all the interviews, Detective Morales gathered everyone in the conference room to explain what would happen next. William Franklin will be charged with attempted fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to commit theft. Given the amount involved, $90,000, this is a felony offense. He'll be processed and held until arraignment, which will likely be tomorrow morning. He turned to my mother. Mrs. Franklin, based on your testimony and corroborating statements, we believe you were acting under duress. While you participated in the scheme, you've been cooperative and have provided valuable information. The district attorney will make the final determination, but I'll recommend that charges against you be minimal, possibly deferred with conditions." My mother nodded, looking both relieved and ashamed. "Mr. Harrington," the detective continued, addressing Dave, "you've admitted to accepting what amounts to a bribe to facilitate fraudulent financial documents. That's a serious ethical violation and potentially criminal. The bank has already terminated your employment, and you may face charges pending further investigation." Dave stared at the table, not responding. "Mr. Johnson, Detective Morales, said to the bank manager, I commend you and your staff, particularly Miss Rodriguez, for your quick and appropriate response to this situation. Your actions prevented a significant financial crime." Marcus nodded. "We take our fiduciary responsibilities seriously." Finally, Detective Morales turned to me. "Mr. Franklin, you'll need to provide a formal written statement. An officer will help you with that process. You may also be called to testify if this case goes to trial, though given the evidence, a plea agreement is more likely." As the detective finished his explanation, I found myself staring at my mother. She looked small and fragile, nothing like the woman who had squeezed my arm painfully just hours ago, insisting I sign away my savings. "What happens to my mother now?" I asked. "She's free to go for the moment," Detective Morales replied. "Though we'll need contact information, and she shouldn't leave the city while the investigation is ongoing." "I don't have anywhere to go," my mother said quietly. "Our apartment. The rent is overdue. And with William in jail." I felt a complex mix of emotions: anger at her complicity, pity for her situation, and a lingering sense of familial obligation despite everything. "We can connect you with social services," Officer Rivera offered. "There are emergency housing options." Before I could think better of it, I heard myself say, "She can stay with me, temporarily, just until she figures things out." My mother looked up, surprise and gratitude on her face. "Nestor, you don't have to." "It's just temporary," I repeated more firmly. "And we'll need to establish some ground rules." As the police finished their work, my father was led away in handcuffs, still glaring at me as if I were the villain in this story. Dave was escorted out separately, his career in banking effectively over. Marcus returned to managing his branch, though not before assuring me that additional security measures would be placed on my accounts immediately. That left my mother and me standing awkwardly in the bank lobby as the chaos subsided. "I'm so sorry, Nestor," she said, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted it to come to this." "But you went along with it anyway," I couldn't help pointing out. "Yes, I did." She didn't make excuses or try to justify her actions, which was new. "I've been going along with William's schemes for 25 years. I don't know how to do anything else." "Well, you're going to have to learn," I said, not unkindly. Because this was the last time. In the weeks that followed, the full extent of my father's financial misdeeds came to light. The $90,000 he owed to Delgado was just the tip of the iceberg. There were other loans, other creditors, other schemes that had failed. His total debt exceeded $200,000 with no assets or income to show for it. During the investigation, the police discovered that my father had attempted similar schemes with other family members. My mother's elderly aunt had lost her retirement savings to one of his investment opportunities. A cousin had been convinced to take out a second mortgage to fund a business venture that never materialized. I hadn't been his first target, just the one who finally said no and exposed the pattern. My father eventually accepted a plea deal, 3 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation and mandatory gambling addiction treatment. He was also ordered to make restitution to his victims, though everyone involved knew that was unlikely to ever happen. My mother, true to Detective Morales' prediction, was given a deferred sentence contingent on community service and counseling. She moved into my spare bedroom, temporarily beginning the difficult process of rebuilding her life without my father's destructive influence. As for me, I found myself in the unexpected role of both victim and reluctant caretaker. The son had become the parent setting boundaries and rules for the very people who should have protected me. It was an uncomfortable reversal, fraught with emotional landmines and lingering resentments. But amid the difficulties, there were small signs of growth and healing. My mother enrolled in a program to complete her long-abandoned college degree. She found a part-time job at a bookstore and began attending support groups for families of gambling addicts. Slowly, hesitantly, she was reclaiming her identity beyond being William Franklin's wife. And I was learning too, about the complex nature of forgiveness, about the importance of boundaries, and about the courage it takes to say no to those we love when saying yes would cause harm. These weren't easy lessons, but they were necessary ones forged in the crucible of that fateful day at the bank when I refused to sign away my future. 6 months have passed since that day at the bank when everything changed. Spring has given way to summer, and the city swelters under a July sun that seems to intensify the pace of life around me. I'm sitting in my apartment, the windows open to catch the occasional breeze, reflecting on how much has changed and how much I've changed since that pivotal moment. My father is serving his 3-year sentence at a minimum security facility outside the city. According to my mother, he's participating in the prison's gambling addiction program, though whether out of genuine desire for change or simply to improve his chances of early release, I can't say. I haven't visited him. I'm not sure if I ever will. That bridge, if it's ever to be rebuilt, will require construction from both sides, and right now, I'm focused on strengthening my own foundations. My mother no longer lives with me. After 3 months of sharing my apartment, and 3 months of awkward silences, tearful apologies, and gradual rebuilding of trust, she found a small studio of her own near the community college where she's now taking business administration classes. It's a modest place, but it's hers, the first space she's ever had that wasn't controlled by my father. I helped her move in carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs and assembling furniture from the discount store. As we unpacked her few belongings, I noticed something different about her. A straightness to her spine that hadn't been there before. A directness in her gaze that had been missing for as long as I could remember. "Thank you, Nestor," she said, as we collapsed onto her newly assembled sofa. "Not just for today, but for everything. For stopping us that day at the bank. For giving me a place to stay when you had every reason to turn your back on me. For showing me it's never too late to start over." I didn't know what to say. Our relationship was still fragile, built on the ruins of the old one. But it was honest now, in a way it had never been before. "I set up a small trust for you," I told her. "It's not much, just enough to cover the rent and utilities if something happens and you can't work. But there are conditions. You have to continue with your financial literacy classes, and all withdrawals have to be approved by the trustee." She nodded, understanding the boundaries without offense. "That's more than fair. I need those guardrails right now." We've established a new kind of relationship, my mother and I. Not the natural parent-child dynamic, but something born of our shared experience and mutual recovery. We meet for coffee once a week. We talk about her classes, my work, normal things. We don't talk about my father unless it's necessary. It's not perfect, but it's real, and right now that's enough. As for me, I've been working with a therapist to process the complex emotions stirred up by the entire ordeal. The anger, the betrayal, the guilt that somehow, despite all logic, still creeps in during vulnerable moments. Dr. Marshall has helped me understand that the guilt isn't mine to carry, that being a good son doesn't mean sacrificing my own well-being for my parents' poor choices. Boundaries aren't selfish, she reminded me in our last session. They're necessary, especially with people who have shown they can't respect them naturally. It's a lesson I'm still internalizing, but it gets a little easier each day. Professionally, things have been looking up. I received a promotion at work partly due to a cybersecurity initiative I developed that saved the company from a potential data breach. The salary increase has helped me rebuild the emergency fund I'd been forced to dip into for legal fees and helping my mother get established. Marcus Johnson, the bank manager, whose quick action prevented disaster, has become something of a mentor. We meet for lunch occasionally, and he's introduced me to his network of financial professionals. Through these connections, I've begun learning more about investing and wealth management, turning the traumatic experience into an opportunity for growth and education. Alicia Rodriguez, the teller who received my desperate note, has become a friend as well. She shared with me that she had recognized the signs of financial coercion because her grandmother had experienced something similar with a manipulative nephew. Her awareness had saved her grandmother's retirement, and now it had helped save my financial future too. Financial abuse doesn't get talked about enough, she told me over coffee one afternoon. especially when it's family. People feel ashamed like they should have known better or should put family first no matter what. But abuse is abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, or financial. She was right. In the months since my father's arrest, I've connected with support groups for adult children of people with addiction and found that my story, while painful, is far from unique. So many others have faced similar situations, being manipulated, guilted, or coerced by the very people who should have their best interests at heart. The most important lesson I've learned through all of this is that true love, whether between parent and child partners or friends, never requires self-destruction. Love that demands you set yourself on fire to keep others warm isn't love at all. It's exploitation dressed in familiar clothes. Setting boundaries isn't a rejection of love or family. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the other person too. By refusing to enable my father's addiction and my mother's codependency, I forced a crisis that, painful as it was, created an opportunity for genuine change. Not everyone takes that opportunity, of course. My father may never acknowledge the harm he's caused or take responsibility for his actions, and that's a reality I've had to accept. I can't control his choices, only my response to them. What I can control is how I move forward. I've established clear financial boundaries, separate accounts credit monitoring, explicit instructions at my bank about who can and cannot access information. I've strengthened my support network of friends who value and respect me. And I've committed to breaking the cycles of financial dysfunction that plagued my family for generations. If you're watching this and recognizing elements of your own story, the guilt, the manipulation, the struggle to say no to family, know that you're not alone. Financial boundaries are just as important as any other kind, and you have every right to protect what you've worked hard to build. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones to protect yourself? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to protect themselves too. And if you found value in my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and lessons learned the hard way. Remember, sometimes the most difficult no is the most important one you'll ever say, especially when it's to someone you love. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own journey toward healthy boundaries and financial peace.